Q and Review, celebrating 40 years of audio production, welcomes you to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, recorded from our studio in the Bishopbriggs Media Centre and by our volunteers working from home. Keep up to date with Q and Review news via our Facebook, Twitter or Instagram at Q and Review, that's @CUEANDREVIEW, or get in touch with us directly by emailing information@qandreview.com, that's INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. Please like and share our podcast and give us constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, February 14. Premier League clubs tracking Carol Starfelt. Report by David Irvin. Premier League clubs are reportedly monitoring Carol Starfelt ahead of possible summer transfer bids. It is claimed a number of unnamed English top-flight clubs are watching the Celtic stopper. The 27-year-old Starfelt is under contract at Celtic Park until 2025 and has been a key player under Ange Postecoglou, having played 20 times so far this season. But Celtic's transfer resolve could be tested in the summer, according to Fabrizio Romano, who reports interest from down south. However, he goes on to insist that any move would have to be significant, with Celtic hopeful of keeping the defender past the summer. The Transfer Insider claims Celtic central defender Carl Starfelt, one to watch in the summer, as Premier League clubs are following him as possible option for next window. Scottish clubs will try to keep him as he's considered an important player for Celtic. It comes after Starfelt admitted he is desperate to represent his country in Euro 2024 qualifying matches next month. He has previously played 5 times for Sweden. The central defender has majorly impressed alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers at Celtic and is hopeful of landing a call-up for his national team. He said, "I hope to be part of the squad, but we will see. I just need to play well for Celtic, and hopefully the manager will see that. It's always big to be picked for your country, and we have some important games coming up, so it would be nice." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, February 14. Celtic youngster Otto hailed after switching to Dunfermline. Report by Ian Collin. Dunfermline boss James McPake admits he is thrilled to have landed Celtic kid Ewan Otto on loan. The 20-year-old Celtic B skipper joined the Pars on loan late last Friday and made an instant debut as a first-half substitute in Saturday's stunning comeback 4-3 victory over Airdrie. And McPake has revealed his friendship with Hoops youth coach Darren O'Day was key to sealing a deal for the rest of the season. He said, "I am very friendly with Darren. Ewan was the Celtic B captain, and I tried to get him for the past month. We eventually got it over the line. He is a good player, a great kid, and he is not somebody that I do not know. I don't know him personally, but he played against my youth team at Dundee, and I had watched him plenty. Obviously, with the connection to Darren, I had spoken to Darren and watched most of Celtic B's games. We are delighted to get him in." Evening Times Sport, February 14. John Kennedy reveals secret to Celtic defensive solidity. Report by Graham McGarry. It wasn't so long ago that John Kennedy was part of a management team at Celtic that was being roundly panned, particularly in his case for the presumed part he was playing in their defensive failings. Now that things are going swimmingly on the park and the Celtic defence is watertight, it would be quite understandable if he allowed himself to wallow in the praise that is now coming the way of Ange Postecoglou, his staff and his team. Just as in the fraught final days of Neil Lennon's last term in charge of the club, Kennedy's focus is on the collective, and any credit that is now apportioned to him, just as with the criticism when things aren't going so well, is to be shared equally. From the team's point of view, that means it isn't only the back four and Joe Hart who take credit for the fact they have only lost just 18 goals in 25 Premiership games this season, but the more advanced players who set the tone with their pressing of the opposition. And from the backroom team's perspective, that success is down to the work they are all doing to improve each individual player on a daily basis, no matter what position they play. Said Kennedy, "I've been here too long to accept any praise. I know what happens next week if we lose a goal or a game. I think sometimes because of the position you played, people relate that area of the game to you. But the focus is very much on improving individuals, but also on all areas of the team. My job is to support the manager, but a large part of the job I do is on the training pitch, doing analysis, working with the players on a daily basis along with Gavin Strachan, Harry Kewell and Stevie Woods. We've got a very strong staff here who all have a real focus on developing the players. The first team is always about results, but we have players here who are continually working to improve themselves. I have worked in academies where that is the primary focus, and the first team has only been about results. But here, it's also about developing the players alongside that. Developing those defensive instincts among the likes of Kyogo, who leads the Celtic press with his relentless energy, has been a key to their success in Kennedy's view. And he said, "It's part of the function of the team. I get much more excited when the play is at the other end and the team is scoring goals. But a large part of how we play is how we defend as a team. We meet teams head-on at the top end of the pitch. This has been key to not conceding or giving up many chances. It's the attitude they show. It's very easy to kind of take it easy at times. I'll not make that run or press as hard as I have been. And before you know it, if you are defending your box, the guys have kept the foot down in that respect and maintains the intensity. We always start with a real intent to press because it leads to a lot of our attacking success. It's about the whole team and not just the defenders. But at the same time, the guys at the back have done a terrific job, just as well as the attacking players who score the goals. All that being said, there is no downplaying the importance of a strong central defensive partnership, and in Cameron Carter-Vickers and Carol Starfelt, certainly Celtic have one of those. The pair are still undefeated in domestic matches where they have started together at the heart of a Celtic backline, and Kennedy is fulsome in his praise of both, while typically recognising that the backup cast isn't too shabby either. He said, "It's good to have two strong defenders like Cameron and Carroll. They have been key to the stability at the back. They've played a lot together, and you can see the relationship blossoming. It will get even better in time." Alongside that, we have Kobayashi, who has looked good since he has come in, and Stephen Welsh has also contributed a lot as well. The squad is in a good place defensively. There's been some rotation and changes at times, but everyone has come in and contributed. The manager has instilled in the team the fact it doesn't matter if you play 10 minutes or 90 minutes, you have to contribute to the team. Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, February 14. Partick Thistle fans still reeling after Ian McCall's departure. Report by James Kearney. Sunday evening was a night of mixed emotions for Partick Thistle supporters. Earlier that day, 2,500 of them had made the short journey across Glasgow to watch their side take on Rangers in their own backyard. Spirits were high during the pilgrimage to Govan, as fans excitedly dreamed of pulling off a famous Scottish Cup upset. Thistle had not beaten Rangers in 30 years, and that unwanted record will continue for a little longer after Michael Beale's men secured a 3-2 victory. The sizable away support had travelled more in hope than expectation, and although their team was defeated, there was a satisfaction that the Jags had gone up against one of the big boys and left them with a bloody nose. That sense of pride turned into confusion at around 8:15 p.m. when a club statement was released announcing that Ian McCall and his assistants Alan Archibald and Neil Scally had been sacked. Jaws fell to the floor as punters read that Chris Doolan would take charge of the first team on an interim basis, as the Jags wished McCall all the best for whatever the future may hold. It prompted a singular response from just about everyone. Why now? An examination of the Championship club's form provides an explanation, given the title seems now to be beyond Thistle, and there is little doubt that McCall was under pressure. But relieving him of his duties a couple of hours after a very credible performance at one of Scotland's most daunting away days, even those who had been calling for the manager's head were caught off guard. The timing was perplexing, to say the least. Confusion reigned as supporters tried to wrap their heads around the decision. Nobody could figure out why the board has resolved to remove the manager off the back of an encouraging display. The reason, though, is simple. The High Hegians at Firhill did not make it in the aftermath of the defeat. They had already pulled the trigger. The bullet was just a little slower than usual. Back-to-back home defeats against Hamilton and Cove Rangers were the final nails in McCall's coffin. Unbeknownst to anyone else, the board decided days before the cup tie at Ibrox that a change in management was required. However, they were wary of disrupting the team's preparations for the Rangers match, so it was decided that the announcement would be made once the fixture no longer served as a distraction, and McCall was handed a stay of execution. It begs some obvious questions. What if Thistle had won? Would McCall still be in his post? What if the game had finished 2-1, with Malik Tillman's controversial goal all that separated the two sides? Was there any way the game could have gone to prevent McCall being handed his jotters? The club addressed fans last night via another statement. Removing McCall was a strategic decision, the update read, and the timing was to allow maximum preparation time for the weekend's match against Ayr. This was also a clear hint that Thistle's finances are stretched. The statement concluded, the board of directors are also aware of recent speculation regarding the financial situation at the club. Having reviewed the club's finances following the recent change of control, It has become clear that the club faced significant challenges in delivering its budget for this season. A plan has been developed to ensure budgets are brought in line, and actions will be taken on an ongoing basis to ensure this remains the case. In addition, there are several live discussions regarding bringing additional investment into the club to support this process and to contribute to our plans for next season. Some supporters are upset with the way this situation has played out, and they are not alone. It is understood that the players are not happy with the manner of the coaching team's departure. The board, comprised of Chairman Duncan Smiley, fan representative Caroline Mackey, and Partick Thistle Football Club's trust duo Richard Beestall and Fergus McLennan, only assumed power in December after their predecessors resigned, and it has been an eventful 2 months with the quartet at the helm. A cash injection from the Jags Foundation, the 1,000-strong supporters group, provided the funds to extend Lee Hodson's loan deal, and it is no secret that money is very tight at Firhill at the moment. Talks between the Trust and TJF have been continuing as the Jags' seemingly never-ending fan ownership saga simmers away in the background. The spirit of cooperation between the Trust, which is the vehicle that holds a 74% stake of the club on behalf of supporters, and TJF, following the ousting of the previous board, has been encouraging to see. Some TJF members were unhappy that the fans group was not informed or consulted about the decision to sack McCall, but the group's chairman, Sandy Fife, insists this was correct practice, although he would still like a full and frank explanation from the club. Said Fife, any decision to relieve the management team of their first team duties is ultimately a footballing one for the club board, rather than for a fan representative shareholder. The model we see at other clubs has always been fan-owned, rather than fan-run. It would not be right for a fan organisation to be calling the shots on footballing decisions like this. It is also worth emphasising that TJF is not a shareholder at Partick Thistle. A situation like this is exactly why TJF did not want to nominate a member of its elected board to the club board of directors. The boundaries of responsibility need to be respected if a fan ownership model is to work going forwards. It is now for the club to explain why it did what it did, and why it communicated this in the manner it did. We have made our own thoughts on the timing of this announcement, shared by many within the wider support, abundantly clear to the club board. The decision to sack McCall is the latest dramatic turn in a season that has already provided a fair whack. There will doubtless be a few more twists between now and the end of the campaign, but none will turn heads quite as much as Sunday's announcement. In this sport where timing is everything, Partick Thistle are looking a little out of sync, says James Kearney. Evening Times Sport, February 15. Celtic set for Japan tour. Celtic are reportedly set to be involved in an end-of-season tour of Japan, which will include matches against European giants PSG, Manchester City and Bayern Munich. This is according to Japanese outlet Sponichi, which claims that a tournament is penciled in for the 1st or 3rd weeks of July 2023. And in addition to PSG, there is a growing possibility that Celtic, Bayern Munich and Manchester City will come to Japan. Since the arrival of Ange Postecoglou from J1 League side Yokohama F. Marinos, The Hoops have seen an influx of talent from the Far East over the last 18 months. Kyogo Furuhashi, Daisen Maeda, Ryo Hatate, Yosuke Ideguchi, Yuki Kobayashi, and Tomoki Iwata have all arrived from Japan since the summer of 2021. The proposed tournament would take place after the domestic season has concluded in Scotland, with the league wrapping up on the weekend of May 27 and 28. The Scottish Cup final then takes place a week later on Saturday, June 3. Celtic last went to Japan at the start of the 2006-07 campaign in an attempt to capitalise on the popularity of Shunsuke Nakamura. The Hoops lost 3-0 to Marinos as part of a trip to the Far East, which involved just one fixture. However, this time around, it looks to be more of a tournament. Meanwhile, Hearts attacker Yutaro Oda has revealed how Celtic stars Yuki Kobayashi, Ryo Hatate, and Tomoki Iwata have helped him settle into life in Scotland. The 21-year-old signed for the Edinburgh club during the January transfer window from J1 league side Vissel Kobe. And now the Japanese forward has explained how former teammate Kobayashi, along with fellow countrymen Hatate and Iwata, have welcomed him to Scotland. Speaking to the Edinburgh Evening News, he said, "Kobayashi played with me since we were in junior high school, so I know him. Iwata, Hatate and Kobayashi all came to Edinburgh and we went to a Japanese restaurant. They are senior to me, so they taught me a lot of things about Scotland. I feel people are speaking English so fast I cannot understand. The Scottish accent is so strong, but first of all, I have to understand what English is." Report by Aidan MacDonald. Evening Times Sport, February 15. Club 1872's Dave King deal is a missed opportunity for Rangers fans. Report by Chris Jack. The opportunity that Dave King offered his fellow Rangers supporters was once in a lifetime. It will be for generations to come to determine whether the call of "thanks but no thanks" was the right one or not. The fans have spoken. The proposal from the former chairman has been rejected through inaction, and the fate of Rangers has been taken out of the hands of the thousands and still rests with several individuals. A move from Club 1872 to raise around £13 million and purchase King's major shareholdings in RIFC plc was ambitious and bold. It has ultimately failed, with King confirming on Tuesday that the support for the plan was nowhere near the level required. King has previously spoken of extending the initial 3-year deadline and giving the fans the time needed if the appetite was there. In a statement, he insisted any further prolonging of the period would be futile and would not have any meaningful impact. He cited the wish from some fans to own shares in their own right rather than through Club 1872, and pointed to the dissatisfaction that some have with the organisation as a reason why the target of 20,000 legacy members has been missed by such a margin. It was point 4 in his statement, as he highlighted the fact that supporters no longer feel that the club is under threat, that is the most pertinent. If that is the reason why large swathes of the fan base have failed to get involved, then many have short memories. The chance to control almost 20% of the shares in Rangers was a unique one. It was a plan defined by history, one that looked to tomorrow rather than focused on the events of today. It is hard to envisage a scenario now that would allow a supporter organisation to own a fifth of their club and to have a claim to a boardroom seat. Like he was in 2015 when he rescued Rangers and set about restoring Rangers, King was their best hope, their only hope. Club 1872 have already identified a number of opportunities to increase their percentage through other avenues, but meaningful influence is now as far away as it has been for some time. Given the strained relations between the Club 1872 board and the Rangers hierarchy, they could find it almost impossible to get a look in at Ibrox. The success of this scheme would have been no slight on the current custodians. It was a perfectly reasonable position to take to back the regime that is in place, and the King blueprint at the same time. But fans only rally to a cause in moments of war rather than peace, and many saw every pound going to King as one that should have gone to Rangers. This issue was bigger than that, though. It was somewhat ironic that this announcement was made on the anniversary of the traumatic evening that Craig White stood on the steps and announced his administration plans. The rest, of course, is history. Those events can never be rewritten, but they would not have unfolded if fans had owned the holy grail of 25% of the shares in Rangers. The whole point of the Never Again campaign was to ensure that such a disastrous scenario was impossible to play out in the years and decades to come. There will be many supporters who are content with the running of the club and the current shareholder profile. At one stage, though, the approval ratings of Sir David Murray would have been overwhelming as well. Rangers showed that no giant was too big to fall, and the trials and tribulations were proof of how quickly situations can change, how easy it is for control to be lost, and for the destiny of Rangers to be snatched away from the fans in the stand that had to take to the streets. No support should understand that better or more profoundly than Rangers. The impact of this decision could be felt for generations to come, and it is the directors and investors of tomorrow that punters need to worry about, rather than the ones of today. The future cannot be predicted. The past should never be forgotten at Ibrox, says Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, February 15. Kinghorn comfortable, taking a back seat to world-class Russell. Blair Kinghorn admits he can have no complaints about losing the Scotland number 10 jersey to the resurgent Finn Russell over the past few months. The 26-year-old Edinburgh player looked to have usurped the Racing 92 playmaker as Gregor Townsend's first-choice standoff heading into the autumn tests. Kinghorn played there in the final Six Nations game last year against Ireland, and then continued in the role in the summer tour of South America when Russell was given time off to rest. Townsend then left Russell out of his initial squad for the autumn test due to the head coach's concerns about his form, and declared that Kinghorn was in the driving seat after selecting him to start his sixth consecutive match in the October test against Australia. That proved to be his last start for the national team, as Russell was called in for the third autumn test against New Zealand and has excelled in his 4 appearances since returning to the fray. Said Kinghorn, Finn is obviously a world-class player who is really hitting his form now, and you can see how good he is when he's in form. He brings the other 14 players with him and gives us really good front foot attacking ball to play off. There are ups and downs to it. Obviously, you want to be starting, but you've got to give credit where it's due, and the man in form is the man you want to pick. You just have to accept that Finn's top quality, and when he's in that form, he's going to play. That's what you want. You want your best players playing. You saw what he can do on Saturday against Wales, creating something out of nothing, putting us in really good scoring positions, and the crowd getting behind him. Kinghorn has played most of his career at fullback before recent exposure at standoff for club and country. In both of this year's Six Nations games, he has come on as a replacement for fullback Stuart Hogg, and he said, "I am obviously pushing because everyone wants to be starting, but if my role is to be on the bench and come on and bring an impact, then that's my role. I just want to be involved in the 23. I'll give it everything I've got to force my way into the starting team." Kinghorn was introduced to the action after just 13 minutes on Saturday when Hogg suffered a head injury, and the Edinburgh man went on to score the Scots' fourth try in their 35-7 destruction of Wales. Said Kinghorn, "When you're on the bench, you usually warm up about 15 minutes and then 35 minutes. I was just settling on the bench and someone shouted, 'Blair, Blair, you're on.' So it's straight panic and everything comes off. It's quite good though, because you get thrown in straight away and you don't get time to think, which is what you want." It was good to get some more minutes. I felt confident and comfortable coming on at 15 because I was happy with the touches I had at Twickenham the week before. The Scots will aim to make it 3 wins on the spin when they face France in Paris a week on Sunday, and Kinghorn said, "We'll go with confidence. We went there 2 years ago and got a victory, and I feel we're a better team now. 80 minutes of rugby, anything can happen. If we get our rugby right, any team in the world will struggle to play against us." Evening Times Sport, February 15. Robinson says Watt has important role to play for St Mirren. St Mirren manager Stephen Robinson admits he's going to have to rely more heavily on Tony Watt in the coming weeks as fellow striker Alex Grieve faces an injury layoff. New Zealand forward Grieve was forced off in the first half of Saturday's Scottish Cup defeat by Celtic and is now preparing for a spell on the sidelines. Grieve's absence leaves Curtis Main and January signing Watt, who has started only one match since October, as the only senior strikers available to Robinson as the Buddies bid to step up their pursuit of a top 6 place. The Saints boss said, "We have not had scan results back, but we are fearing it's going to be a length of time with Alex, which leaves us with just 2 first-team centre forwards. We'll just have to get on with that and see how we go. We have lost 4 strikers now, if you include Eamon Brophy and Toyosi Olusanya going out on transfer deadline day, and then Jonah Ayunga and Alex getting injured. It seems to be always the way when you've got a small squad. You get 2 or 3 injuries in the same position. We have to run with a small squad, and I think all squads are in the same in that they get stretched to the limit if you get injuries in a certain position. We need Tony to get a bit more fitness and game time, and that will have to be a little more rushed now with Alex's injury. I have worked with Tony before. I know what he can do. He's a bit short of match practice, but I thought he did okay when he came on Saturday. I know what he's capable of when he's fully flying. He's trained really well over the last 10 days, and he's not far away. I'm sure he'll play an important part in the second half of the season." St Mirren visit Robinson's former club Motherwell. just a few days after the Steelmen sacked manager Stephen Hamill and gave Stuart Kettlewell the reins on a caretaker basis. And Robertson said, "Stephen's lost his job, and it's not nice to see. We're all 3 games away from being either rubbish or brilliant. It is a tough industry, unique in many ways, and I feel for any manager who loses his job, but we have to concentrate solely on ourselves. My thoughts are solely with St Mirren. If we produce the same level of performance we had at Celtic Park, we have nothing to fear from anybody. We know Motherwell cannot sign any more players, so we know what we're going to face. Stuart will try and implement his own ideas, but Motherwell cannot change the players. Every manager wants to put their own stamp on it, so he'll have to try and do something slightly different, and we have to be prepared for that, as we will be." Evening Times Sport, February 16. St Johnstone boss Callum Davison says teams are too quick to change managers. Callum Davison believes clubs are too quick to make changes to the hot seat as the Cinch Premiership managerial roundabout continues apparently unabated. The St Johnstone boss, who has been in charge for almost 2 years and 8 months, is the longest-serving manager in the top flight. Davison was appointed Tommy Wright's successor on June 18, 2020, and in his first campaign made history by winning the League Cup and the Scottish Cup. However, even he has felt under pressure at times this season and has been grateful for a supportive board. Stephen Hamill became the latest top-flight boss to lose his job when he departed Motherwell after just 6 months in the post following the Scottish Cup exit to Raith Rovers on Saturday, while other Premiership casualties this season include Jack Ross and Jim Goodwin. Davidson said, "I don't think it is great. There is a lot of pressure from different areas being a manager. I felt that pressure myself after some poor results, but I have a chairman who stuck by me, and I believe I am getting better. You get one transfer window to do things, or if things aren't going right, they are too quick to change. The problem is, if they keep doing that, you will keep having managers in and out of jobs. You obviously have social media influences that maybe weren't there 15 years ago that can affect people's decisions when maybe it is not the right one. I can only speak as a manager who has a hierarchy above me, who have a strong belief in what I do. I have had a really good opportunity to manage here. Some people, if they go to bigger clubs and don't get success straight away, that's them done. They don't get time to do it. As a manager, I would obviously like to see all of us get a little bit more time in the job and develop your own type of football and try to bring success." Evening Times Sport, February 16. Todd Cantwell thanks massive Rangers figures for Ibrox welcome. Report by Chris Jack. Todd Cantwell has thanked boss Michael Beale and Ibrox stalwarts James Tabarny and Connor Goldson for helping him settle into life at Rangers. The 24-year-old made the move to Glasgow last month after leaving boyhood club Norwich to sign a long-term deal with the Scottish Cup holders. A debut in the win over St Johnstone has been followed by outings against Hearts, Ross County and Partick Thistle, and Cantwell is now in line for a place in the Viaplay Cup final clash with Celtic. The pressure to deliver success at Ibrox can take time for some arrivals to get used to, but the process has been made easier thanks to Beale's approach and the help of skipper Tavarny and vice-captain Goldson. Said Cantwell, "It was different. At Norwich, when we were in the Championship, we had that responsibility as well, and we were touted to win every game. Being here and being in all the cup competitions and stuff like that, it is a bigger weight, but it is something that I personally love. I want to win games. Goldson and Tavernier have been massive, to be fair. I sit next to Connor in the changing room, and he put his arm around me quite early and let me know the way around here, and what is good and what is not. I can only be thankful, to be honest, and it has been a smooth transition. For him to take the time, he obviously thinks a bit of me to do that, because he doesn't need to. Like I say, I speak about all the senior boys, and they have brilliant with me so far. I do owe a lot of that to the manager, because I have come in, and he has made it really easy for me. There have been multiple opportunities to put an arm around me, and I have felt it. As a player, that can be honestly so important, to feel like you are supported and feel like they understand you away from football as well. I think that is what has made it so smooth for me. Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, February 16. Ange Postecoglou offered position suggestion. Report by Mark Walker. New Celtic striker should also be used as a winger, according to his countryman, Nottingham Forest striker Hwang Yu-jo. The South Korean hitman netted his first goal for the Hoops in a Scottish Cup romp against St Mirren last week, and has settled into the club after his move from Suwon Samsung Blue Wings. And 53 times capped Forest striker Hwang, who is now back in his homeland on loan at FC Seoul, has revealed sought advice from him before he decided to move to Scottish football. He said, "Because I had previously played in Europe with Bordeaux for 3 years, reached out to me for advice before he decided to sign for Celtic. I had a couple of important instructions for him. The first was to gain the respect of your teammates, and the second was to learn to play as a wide forward or a winger, as well as just a striker. In European football, variety is key. The ability to be able to play well in a number of positions is very important. I believe is good enough to do that. He has the physicality and ability to expand his game. And it is very important he reaches out to his teammates and coaches at Celtic and tries to integrate as much as possible. I was in France for 3 years and still cannot speak French. That was undoubtedly a hindrance. I told to learn the language as quickly as possible. He is clearly a very good player, but as a Korean, you have to work extra hard to succeed in Europe. I am sure he will." Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, February 16. Ian Holloway on Motherwell radar. Report by Aidan Smith. Motherwell have narrowed their managerial search down to a short list of 3 after they sacked Stephen Hamill following the Scottish Cup defeat to Raith Rovers at the weekend. Former Queen's Park Rangers, Bristol Rovers and Blackpool boss Ian Holloway has been interviewed for the position, while Jack Ross and former Peterborough United manager Grant McCann have also been sounded out. Times Sport understands that Tommy Wright, John Hughes and Ian McCall are not being considered, despite previous reports linking the trio with the position. Holloway has been out of management since 2020 when he left Grimsby Town, but he has recently explained how he would be keen on a return to football. Ross was sacked by Dundee United at the start of the current season, following dismal results in both the league and Europe, but he also had successful spells at Hibs and St Mirren. McCann, who is also in the running, was sacked last month by Peterborough, with his side sitting in 8th position in League One, 5 points off the playoffs. Stuart Kettlewell is currently Motherwell's interim boss, and he guided the Steelmen to their first victory in 6 months last night against St Mirren. The former Ross County co-manager has also put his name forward for the job on a full-time basis. He said this week, "We have had brief conversations between myself and 1 or 2 officials of the club. I am a planner, so I want to understand what's happening, and I'm sure I'll get some clarity in the coming hours. I'll give you the brutally honest answer. If the football club thought I was the right fit for this job, I would certainly take it into consideration. But if they don't, I had a role here developing young players. That's a job I came in to take and was fully intent on doing for a period of time and getting success. I like to think my CV shows that development of players' side has been a big part of my makeup as a coach and manager. Even at first team level, I felt I was pretty successful in developing players, and with that came a degree of success. But if the board and chairman don't feel I'm the right fit for it, that's fine. I'm not pitching myself for this job. I'm not about being a salesman and trying to audition for anything. They'll know me as a guy and how I work. If that's something that connects with the board, you have to be specific with this. It's not just a case of throwing somebody in to do a job. It has to be what the club want for their culture and how they want to try and move the club forward. If I fit with that, it might be something I would consider. If I don't, there will be no ill feeling in any way, shape or form." Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, February 16. Josh Taylor ordered to defend WBO title. Josh Taylor has been ordered to defend his WBO light welterweight title against Teofimo Lopez next, after a foot injury scuppered the Scot's proposed rematch with Jack Catterall. A voluntary defence against Catterall on March 4 in Glasgow was postponed after Taylor tore the plantar fascia tendon in his heel in sparring, and the much-anticipated return bout may now be put on the back burner. That is because the WBO has written to Bod Arum, the promoter of both Taylor and former unified lightweight champion Lopez, instructing the start of negotiations for a contest between the pair. Lopez, who has won his last 2 fights since moving up to 140 pounds after dropping his WBA, WBO and IBF titles to George Kambosos Jr. in November 2021 in a shock defeat, is now Taylor's mandatory challenger. WBO chairman Luis Batista Salas outlined the terms of the fight in an official letter which stated, "In the wake of the recent postponement of the Josh Taylor-Jack Catterall WBO voluntary title defence, the WBO World Championship Committee is hereby ordering the commencement of negotiations for the mandatory title defence obligation in the junior welterweight division between Josh Taylor and Teofimo Lopez Jr. The camps herein are granted 10 days upon issuance of this notice to reach an agreement, or purse bid proceedings shall be conducted pursuant to WBO regulations of World Championship contests. The minimum bid for the junior welterweight division is $150,000 United States dollars. Any of the parties involved may request a purse bid ceremony at any time during the negotiation process." Taylor extended his perfect professional record to 19 wins from as many fights, with a controversial points victory over fellow Briton Catterall 12 months ago to retain his WBC, WBA, WBO and IBF crowns. While Taylor was given the nod by split decision, many observers felt Catterall had done enough to get the verdict. Taylor has since vacated his WBC, WBA and IBF titles. Catterall now seems to have turned his attention to a fight against WBC champion Regis Prograis next, writing on Twitter earlier this week, "They can fight, see who is the biggest duck. Me and Progress can get it on next." Evening Times Sport, February 16. Old Firm Cup Final will be officiated by best referee in the country. Report by Ewan Payton. A former top Scottish referee believes Nick Walsh is the perfect official to take charge of the next instalment of Rangers vs Celtic. Steve Conroy insists Walsh is the best referee in the country, and it has been announced that Walsh will be the man in the middle for this year's upcoming Viaplay Cup Final. Celtic will be aiming to retain their trophy as they look to take one huge step towards achieving a domestic treble. Meanwhile, Michael Beale will see this as an opportunity to gain a huge psychological advantage going forward. Lifting the League Cup would also see Beale lift his first trophy as Rangers manager. However it pans out, drama between the Glasgow Giants is guaranteed, and Conroy reckons Walsh is the best referee to deal with such high stakes at Hampden on February 26. He told Grosvenor Sport, "I think Nick is the right choice. He's been the best referee in the country since Bobby Madden left, but he has not been free from talking points or controversy this season, as we saw in the Hearts-Celtic game in October when a Michael Smith handball went unpunished. It's an experienced team overall who will be in charge, with Kevin Clancy as the fourth official and John Beaton the VAR. They are guys who have been over the course before, so overall it's the right team. Nick did his first derby during COVID, so he was away from the baying masses, but he covered Celtic's 4-0 win over Rangers earlier in the season, so he knows what to expect, and he will not be overawed. Nothing will come as a surprise to him. It's the first major final to use new technology, and after all the issues we have had this season, the powers that be will be hoping it goes smoothly and without anything to discuss. But it certainly adds tension to it, that's for sure, given it's a Celtic Rangers final. Let's hope if Beaton has to get involved, it does not take 4 minutes to get to the decision, which is so frustrating for everyone involved. And in that regard, tell the fans what's going on. I think the SFA have been quite contemptuous of the public. We are the consumers. We are buying the product, and therefore the paying public should be kept informed. They need to make announcements quickly on VAR calls and get the graphics on the big screens. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, February 16. Celtic and Rangers Scottish Cup fixtures in full as TV picks revealed. Report by David Irvin. Scottish Cup quarter-final matches between Hearts and Celtic, as well as Rangers and Raith Rovers, have been included in the competition's live TV picks. Organisers have confirmed all 4 quarter-final matches will be shown live between Friday, March 10 and Monday, March 13. The action will begin with Friday night football as Inverness host Kilmarnock in the Highlands for a spot in the semi-final. The match will be broadcast on BBC Scotland with a 7:45 p.m. kick-off. Then Hearts will host Celtic at Tynecastle on Saturday. Viaplay will broadcast the fixture with a 12:15 p.m. kick-off in the capital. Raith Rovers' trip to Ibrox to face Rangers will also be shown by Viaplay. That match is on Sunday, March 12, with a 1 p.m. kick-off time. The quarter-final action will draw to a close with a Monday night meeting between Falkirk and Ayr United. That match will be broadcast by BBC Scotland with kick-off at 7:45 p.m. A Scottish Cup statement confirmed. The Scottish Cup quarter-final fixtures have been finalised, with all 4 matches set to be broadcast across Viaplay and BBC Scotland. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, February 16. Southampton not convinced by Gerrard. Report by David Irvin. Steven Gerrard has reportedly missed out on the Southampton job, with club chiefs not convinced he was the right fit for the role. It is reported that the former Aston Villa and Rangers manager was in talks with the Premier League side, but will not be offered the job. Southampton are aiming to make an appointment in the hope the new man in charge can steer the club clear of the serious threat of relegation. Jesse Marsh was thought to be in pole position for the hot seat, but the Daily Mirror claim a change of heart has ruled the American out of contention. Both Gerrard and Chris Wilder, the former Sheffield United manager, were considered for the job, the report continues, with talks held between both men and Southampton. But it is claimed Southampton were left unconvinced by either manager. With Marsh also not set for the job, it means Ruben Selles is set to take the team on Saturday for the trip to Chelsea and could be handed the job until the end of the season. For former Rangers manager Gerrard, there is still the outside chance he is considered for the Leeds United post as he seeks his next opportunity after being sacked by Villa. The ex-England international was reportedly close to the Poland national team job and was a huge outsider to take over at Everton before Sean Dyche's appointment. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, February 17. Morelos and Kent, Rangers contract situation update. Report by Ewan Payton. Michael Beale insists he's more confident today of Alfredo Morelos and Ryan Kent penning new Rangers deals than he was previously. The Rangers attackers are both out of contract this summer and are currently free to speak to other clubs about their futures. The pair have been key figures at Ibrox for a number of years, and they have featured heavily under Beale since his arrival. The manager revealed that talks over fresh deals are ongoing for both players, but there's no news imminent. But in a bullish comment, Beale admitted he is feeling increasingly confident that Morelos and Kent could extend their stays. He said, "The talks are ongoing. The clubs know my feeling on it. The players and the representatives are talking. I think the way this club ends the season will determine everything for more than just those players. There's a lot to play for at this moment. We know the emotions in this city based on where you finish and whether you hold a trophy above your head between now and the end of the season. I think that has a big part to play in terms of the makeup of our squad next year. Certainly, any comments I have made recently are not to suggest I'm less confident. If anything, I'm more confident. The talks have been ongoing all the time. What I try to do is give them room to breathe a little bit. We have had to win every game that's in front of us, both in the league and the cup competitions, and we have a cup final coming up. We have a big away game at the weekend. Now is not the time for me to be giving any ultimatums. We have to focus on what's in front of us, and if we do well, it makes everything easier. I think they are playing better now. If the team is winning and everyone is playing well, everything feels nice in the world. We know that it can change in 90 minutes, so it's important we keep focused on the games. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, February 17. Callum McGregor highlights importance of extra Celtic allocation. Report by Aidan MacDonald. Celtic captain Callum McGregor has stressed the importance of the Hoops having a large away support for the upcoming Scottish Cup quarter-final against Hearts. SFA Scottish Cup rules state that the visiting club shall have the right to claim admissions up to 20% of the spectator capacity of the ground. This means the Parkhead side will see their number of fans inside Tynecastle increase from 1,300 to 3,300, and the 29-year-old was keen to get across how vital this could be in terms of Ange Postecoglou's side's chances of progressing. Speaking at a fan event in Belfast, he said, "It is important that we try and use that, along with the game principles that we always do. We always try to approach the game the same way, be dominant, have the ball, impose ourselves in the game. It will be great to have more supporters in there than normal, and they always back us to the hilt. We are looking forward to it. It will be a tough game. It's always difficult going there, especially in a cup tie, a one-off game, but we will approach it like we do every other cup tie. We have to be right on the day. You have to do a lot of good things. It's a difficult venue, but hopefully we have enough to overcome it." Evening Time Sport, February 17. Cummings' comeback will lift the whole team. Report by David Barnes. Glasgow Warriors head coach Franco Smith believes that his cautious approach towards recuperating Scott Cummings will benefit the player and therefore his team when the international second row makes his comeback after 3.5 months out with a broken toe against Ulster at Scotstoun tonight. "He could have been ready a little bit earlier, but I wanted to make sure he got some proper contact training," explained Smith. "It is important to get the guys back when they are ready to perform properly, not just back to play. It is the same for guys like Rory Darge and Ollie Kebble, who will come back in the next couple of weeks. It is important that they are properly prepared and confident, because it's tough when you're coming back from longer-term injury." As Warriors return to action after a 3-week break, looking to build on the momentum generated through a 10-match unbeaten streak leading into this Six Nations window, Smith has named 7 players in his Matchday 23 who have been released from Scotland's training squad. Centre and captain Stafford McDowell, fullback Ollie Smith, and number 8 Jack Dempsey all start, while props Jamie Batty and Simon Bergen, hooker Fraser Brown and scrum half Ali Price are on the bench. Price began this season as Scotland's first choice number 9, but a lack of game time under Smith at club level has led to the 2021 British and Irish Lion falling behind Ben White of London Irish and Warriors teammate George Horne in the international pecking order, and he will be frustrated that he has not been given a chance to push his case from the start against Ulster. However, Smith has opted to go with 21-year-old Jamie Dobby, with one eye on the team's rearranged fixture away to the Lions, which has been scheduled for next weekend, meaning that it clashes with Scotland's trip to Paris to take on France. Said the coach, "Jamie is a huge talent and is still young, so he's definitely got a bright future ahead of him. It's fantastic for him to have a guy like Ali Price there to learn from, and for us to have Ali to come on and make an impact this week. Jamie is definitely the future of Scottish rugby, I reckon, and we want him to grow in confidence and to really impose himself on the game. The more time he spends on the pitch for us, the better he will become." Ali started against the Dragons in Glasgow's last game, but we worked well in training last week, and I want to have a little bit of continuity with the fact that we will not have George or Ali available for next week. Apart from the fact that Jamie played really well against the Dragons during the second half of the game, it is also between him and Sean Kennedy at scrum half when we get to South Africa. I always had a plan in terms of how we'd manage the players during this period, and we've not had many injuries in that regard, so it's worked out well. Both Dobby and Price should draw extra personal motivation for this match from the presence of potential Scotland rival John Cooney as replacement scrum half for Ulster. The 32-year-old picked up the last of his 11 caps for Ireland on February 23, 2020, meaning that he will be allowed to switch allegiance next Thursday through World Rugby's controversial new eligibility protocols. The rule also allows capped players to move country so long as there is a close and credible link via birthright, and they complete a 3-year stand-down period from international rugby. Scotland head coach Craig Townsend has discussed a potential switch with Cooney, whose father is from Blantyre in Lanarkshire, and he has refused to rule out calling up the player during the second half of this year's Six Nations campaign. Ulster are currently third in the URC table, while Glasgow are 4 league points behind in 5th place. Meanwhile, Blade Thomson, the 32-year-old former Scotland back rower, has announced his retirement from rugby following a head injury. New Zealand-born Thomson represented the All Blacks at under-20s level before moving north to join Scarlets in 2018. He qualified for Scotland through his grandfather and made his international debut at the 2019 World Cup, going on to gain 10 caps in total. Report by David Barnes. Evening Times Sport, February 17. Green Brigade launch standing Celtic End campaign. Report by Aidan Smith. The Green Brigade have launched a new campaign to try and introduce an entire safe standing end of Celtic Park. The supporters group are currently housed in the North Curve section of the ground, where 2,700 fans are given the option to stand at matches. Now organisers want to turn the Jock Stein stand into a standing zone of the stadium to allow for more fans to stand, while also improving the Parkhead atmosphere. A statement from the North Curve Twitter page read, "Dortmund's yellow wall is arguably the most iconic stand in world football. In Rome and across Italy, you have the famous curvas. Even closer to home, the Kop in Liverpool retains mythical status. Yet Celtic Park, a place we like to think tops all else, lacks a traditional end of reputation and of influence. The Celtic support has evolved considerably in the last decade. Fans want to stand at matches yet only 2,700 are given that option. A similar number is on a waiting list, although it is likely far more would take up the option once it presents itself. On those famous European nights at Celtic Park, most of the Lisbon Lions' end will stand, and at Hampden the entire goal end, and usually more, choose to stand. Celtic also boasts a vibrant and growing scene of fans who want to play a more active role on match days and beyond. The Green Brigade have long established themselves, and the North Curve Celtic initiative is over 1,000 members. Boys Celtic have added their own mark to the support, now housed immediately opposite the standing section. It is inevitable that the standing capacity at Celtic Park will be increased. The big question is where. We believe the answer is fairly obvious and will cater for all. The Celtic end. Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, February 17. Celtic and Rangers fans would not want team to gift goals in derby games. Report by Ewan Payton. Andy Walker is adamant that neither Celtic nor Rangers fans would want their team to gift their arch-rivals a goal in a derby clash. The discussion follows on a matter of days after Michael Beale instructed his Rangers players to allow Partick Thistle to score an equaliser against his side on Sunday in the Scottish Cup tie. Malik Tillman had fired Rangers ahead after unknowingly taking the ball from a Jags defender when he was trying to play the ball back up into the home side's half after it had been kicked out of play to allow the Rangers player to receive treatment on the pitch. Former Celtic striker Walker applauded Beale for the sporting gesture. However, the pundit insists that there would be no chance of a repeat of that type of situation should it arise in a powder keg derby fixture between Celtic and Rangers. He told Go Radio's football show, "If that had happened in a Celtic versus Rangers game, and I'd stolen someone's throw-in, and we scored a goal, there's not a chance either I or any of my teammates would have given Rangers a goal. Not a chance. And I don't think if it was at Parkhead, the stadium would have allowed it. If it was at Ibrox, the stadium would not allow Rangers to do it." Even when looking back on the Partick Thistle game, Walker admitted he may have made a different decision if he was in Beale's shoes, and he added, "It depends on the scoreline. You might do it if the game's level. I don't think I'd do it if I was behind. I don't think Rangers would have done it if they were behind at the weekend." Meanwhile, Michael Beale has admitted that the probability of Rangers toppling Celtic in the league is low, but he insists his squad must remain focused. The Ibrox outfit currently trail their rivals by 9 points after a stuttering start to the campaign under the leadership of Giovanni van Bronckhorst. Beale has turned the form around since his appointment, but he has called on his players to maintain their performance level in the hope they can make up points on Celtic. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, February 20. Haggy got by with help from his friends. Report by Chris Jack. Yanis Hagi got by with a little help from his friends. Now he just wants to assist his Rangers teammates and repay the faith he has been shown at Ibrox. The 12 months that Hagi spent on the long, gruelling road to recovery have been the most difficult of his career. The physical scars have healed, but the mental challenges were even more profound as he embarked on his rehabilitation programme in Glasgow and in Holland and Romania. The well wishes that poured in following his cruciate ligament injury last January spoke volumes about how highly regarded Hagi is as a player and a person. One of them closest to him provided more comfort than many could. Carlo Casap, a midfielder with Faro Constanta, may be an unknown name to many Rangers fans. He is owed a debt of gratitude, though, for helping Hagi each step of the way, having himself completed that journey on more than one occasion. Hagi said, "These type of injuries, lately there have been so much more of them in football. I have been looking around other players who have had the same type of injury, and it always felt like 10, 15, 20 games until they actually started to get in the team consistently and play. So I push myself, but at the same time I have to be realistic. I have been out for a year. In this year, I've seen other players being out for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and they struggled during their first games, so I don't want to be too harsh on myself. But at the same time, I'm a guy that always strives to get better. It's just balance. My best friend, he had 2 ACL injuries on his knees, so I kind of knew what he went through emotionally. He got injured the first time when I was back in Romania with him, and we were roommates, so I knew what he was going through. So it kind of helped when I had experience from others. Maybe in situations where I didn't have anyone to ask, maybe I would have been shocked and take it more negatively than it was. But having people that had been through this, I relaxed a little bit and understood the situation and did not go into it that negatively. He is still playing after 2 heavy injuries, and we played in all the youth levels of the national team and also in the under-21s, and he's now in Romania. The prevalence of knee injuries such as the one that Hagi suffered against Stirling Albion means that the 24-year-old has plenty of inspiring tales to look up to and examples to follow. An 18-minute run-out against St Johnstone was followed by a half against Partick Thistle, as boss Michael Beale guides Hagi through the first weeks back at Ibrox. It will of course take time for Hagi to get fully up to speed. He is well aware of the process and has no fears over what the future holds. Said Hagi, Federico Chiesa, I have been teammates with him. I kept in contact with him a little because I was teammates with him back in Fiorentina. He had an ACL injury. And Florian Wirtz at Bayer Leverkusen too. They were also out for 9 or 10 months, and they're still struggling to get back into the team. I wouldn't say it's a struggle, it's just part of the process. You just have to accept you've been out for such a long time, and football is not an easy game. You have to accept that. But not think that I need those 20 games. You need to push every day. That's my mentality. I'm trying to do it as soon as possible. Maybe it takes 10 games. Maybe it takes 20. I don't know. I want it as soon as possible, but it doesn't come overnight. I don't have any fear about it happening again. It may happen, but as soon as I got the green light from the medical staff, I just put that away, and I'm all in. I'm never going to step onto the pitch having doubts about being in contact with someone. If I do, I'm just going to hang up my boots. Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, February 20. Jota opens up on Celtic League Cup final injury frustration. Report by James McLaughlin. Celtic winger Jota has opened up on the frustration of watching Celtic win the 2021 League Cup final from the sidelines, and why he's ready to make amends on the pitch this time round. The 23-year-old missed last season's showpiece due to injury, and had to look on as the Hoops lifted the first trophy of Ange Postecoglou's tenure by beating Hibs 2-1 at Hampden. While he insists he was proud of his teammates for getting the job done. There is a lingering frustration that he could not be part of the final win itself, something he is determined to make amends for this season. Celtic take on Rangers in the Viaplay Cup final on February 26, and Jota, with 9 goals and 8 assists this term, is expected to start the match. He said, "Last season, I was not part of the cup final because I was injured. I had to watch the game from a distance, but I was proud of all the boys and what they achieved. I just tried to do my best to provide some support from the sidelines, and the energy was good. In the end, we managed to get the win and lift the trophy, which is always the most important thing. As a football player, you always want to be involved in the biggest games. When that game is about trying to win a trophy, you desperately want to be a part of that. I am no exception for wanting that. You always feel a bit frustrated, as I was on that day, but the boys did a great job to win that trophy. As a football player, you always need to be ready to perform, no matter the circumstances. Back then, of course, it was not my best moment, but I had to live with that, and I tried to fight against it. I believe that these are the type of moments which build you up and make you stronger. So I think that's what happened to me. Right now, I am feeling so much stronger, and I just want to perform better." Celtic warmed up for the Derby Cup final by beating Aberdeen 4-0 at Parkhead on Saturday. Jota was not among the scorers, but is raring to go as the big week-long build-up begins in earnest. He said, "What I have to say is that every game is different. This will be a cup final, and the mindset going into that game is to win. That's the case for every game. There are always different feelings around these games. It will be a nice game to play in, and we just want to make sure that we are the best team on the pitch and to be the team which wins." Report by James McLaughlin. Evening Times Sport, February 20. Michael Stewart on extremely harsh penalty decision at Livingston. Report by Ewan Payton. Michael Stewart reckons the decision to send Stefan Omiyonga off in Livingston's loss to Rangers on Saturday was extremely harsh. The pundit insists that the midfielder should have remained on the park because the challenge he committed, which resulted in a second yellow card, should not even have been a free kick. The Belgian was given his marching orders for a foul on the edge of the box against Kemar Roof. It was a double blow for David Martindale's side, as James Tavernier then stepped up to curl in a stunning effort into the top corner. The call by referee David Dickinson clearly irked Omiyonga, while Martindale looked far from pleased either. Their feelings were echoed by Stewart when appearing on BBC Sports Scene last night, as he warned against football becoming a non-contact sport. VAR could not intervene because it was a second yellow card and not a straight red or a penalty. Stewart told BBC Sports Scene, "I don't think it was a foul when you look at the angle from low behind. It is a sensational free kick, but for me, I don't think it was a foul, so I don't think it's a yellow card. It kills the game. I have huge sympathy for Omiyonga. If that's a foul, we're taking the game into a no-contact sport, and I don't think anyone wants to see that. I think it was extremely harsh." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, February 20. Rangers and Celtic injury concerns heading into the Viaplay Cup final. Report by Ewan Payton. Rangers will meet Celtic at the end of this week to battle it out for the Viaplay Cup. The Glasgow Giants will meet at Hampden to settle the first available silverware of the season this Sunday. With a 3 p.m. kick-off at the National Stadium, the Powder Keg clash has all the makings of a cup classic. It is safe to say both Michael Beale and Ange Postecoglou will be wrapping their key players in cotton wool in the days leading up to the final. But both teams do have some injury concerns heading into the derby game. Starting with Rangers, who defeated Livingston 3-0 on Saturday. They did so without key figure Malik Tillman. Beale revealed that the American missed the trip to West Lothian with a hamstring issue. It does seem likely that the on-loan Bayern Munich playmaker will train with his teammates this week as the Ibrox physios assess his fitness going into the game. One other major worry is the fitness status of John Lundstrom, who was also forced to sit out the weekend's action. With that said, Beale did seem to suggest that the midfielder would win his race to be fit in time for Hampden. There was bright news in the sense that Kemar Roofe stepped up his return to the first team with a goal, while Yanis Hagi was among the matchday squad yet again. It remains to be seen whether Ryan Jack will return to the fold. The Scotland international has struggled in recent weeks with a calf injury. Long-term absentees Philip Helander, John Souttar, Ridvan Yilmaz and Tom Lawrence will all likely miss out. As for Celtic, their squad appears to be in a better state in terms of injuries. There is some concern over the availability of midfield maestro Aaron Mouy after he was absent from Postecoglou's side's 4-0 win over Aberdeen on Saturday. The manager revealed the 32-year-old sat out that one after pulling up with a sore one. Kyogo did make the bench against the Dons after suffering from a shoulder problem against St Mirren in the following week. The striker did get some minutes on Saturday, so it seems likely he will get the nod to start against Rangers with O on the bench. Stephen Welsh has suffered from injury issues this season in general, and it would appear unlikely that he will feature in the matchday squad. Both Beale and Postecoglou will confirm squad availabilities when they speak to the media later this week. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Time Sport, February 20th. Rangers induct 3 members of the current squad into Club Hall of Fame. Report by Stuart Wilson. Rangers have moved to induct current squad members Stephen Davis, Alan McGregor and captain James Tavernier into the club's Hall of Fame. They are the first inductees since Lee McCulloch, Fernando Rickson and Nacho Novo were given the honour in 2014. Davis and McGregor are in their second spells at Ibrox and have glittering domestic success to show for their efforts in light blue, winning titles during both stints. Northern Ireland international Davis has also played in 2 European finals, having been involved in 2008 and in 2022. McGregor was unlucky to miss the Manchester final against Zenit through injury. Tavernier has been at the club since 2015, having been signed from Wigan for a bargain £250,000 by former manager Mark Warburton. The 31-year-old captained Rangers to their 55th league title during an unbeaten league season. The right-back was also the standout player on the road to Seville and finished the tournament as Europa League top scorer, an incredible feat for a defender. He was appointed club captain in 2018 by Steven Gerrard. The players were celebrated at a glittering ceremony at the club's state-of-the-art new Edmondson House venue next to Ibrox. The 38-year-old Davis and 41-year-old McGregor are out of contract at the end of the season. Report by Stuart Wilson.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service.